Hello viewers, welcome to this very special edition called the Marex interview. Today we have with us Captain Gajanan Karanjikar, who is the founder president of the All India Marine Pilots Association, or AIMPA in short. The marine pilots are such an important element of shipping and by inference such an important element in world trade really, that their protection during these difficult times, protection from infection of the coronavirus, is such a paramount thing. We just cannot afford to let our pilots become infected in any major manner. Now, the point is, are they receiving enough attention and enough support from their employers and from the government and the authorities, so that they remain protected? That really is a burning question today. So we have with us Captain Karanjikar, who is as head of AIMPA, will be able to help us answer some of these questions. So welcome, Captain Karanjikar, and we will go straight in now. And the first question I have for you is, how serious is the situation with pilots being exposed to the possibility of infection in line of their duties?
Yes, the pilots are the frontline workers, and they also have been providing the essential service to the shipping in this pandemic period. So the pilots are the first one to board the vessel. And in this situation, of course, the exposure of risk is very high. I mean, of course, the SOPs have been followed by the port to take care of the vessel's inspection and the quarantining of the vessel for 14 days from the last port of call. But still, pilots travel from their home to the ship. Also, they are in contact with the drivers, contact with the pilot boat crew. So the risk of the pilots getting infected is high. They also living in society with their families. So looking at all aspects, the pilots and also boarding the vessel, if there is a lapse in the SOP being followed by the port and the ship, then there could be a very high risk for the pilot boarding such a vessels. There have been certain SOPs in place for the port organizations as well, to see that the pilots don't shake hands and don't come in contact with the ship's crew, and also board the vessel safely, keep a social distancing and things like that. But still the risk remains.
So give us some figures on pilots having become infected in India and globally as well.
The pilot community is very small in India compared to other workers who are working on the ship as well. I don't have the global figures, but there haven't been many pilots globally infected. Calcutta was the first port where the 2 pilots reported positive, and therefore the administration went through the checks of all the pilots, and eventually the rest of the pilots came negative, and these 2 pilots are also home now. Mumbai has about 3 to 4 pilots which are tested positive, and they are at the moment hospitalized and being taken care by the port administration. There is 1 pilot, of course, I also know in Belgium, 2 pilots in Bangladesh, which are also affected. There is no pilot affected at the moment in Indian port, but the risk is very high. What I would suggest is in this case that all pilot periodically should go through the COVID-19 test. And this is one of the very important parameters where we need to look at the pilots are protected, because they can also be the carriers in case the SOPs are not followed by the ship and things like that. Globally, there have been a lot of control in pilots and in regulations of quarantine. Of course, the shipping is moving and the risk cannot be eliminated.
Yes, of course, that's very well said and very well understood. Now, what is AIMPA as an apex body for pilots doing to protect their pilots from this omnipresent risk of infection from COVID-19?
Thank you. Very good question. AMPA is an organization which is newly formed. We are still in a subtle form, and we are not the activist group. So we are not getting into the frontliners as such to do something drastically. We are watching very closely the SOPs derived by the port, derived by the Ministry of Shipping, suggesting the changes therein. And also, we've been in dialogue with a lot of pilots, giving them encouragement, motivation as to this is the work that the India needs the movement. Economy needs the shipping line to work, and also the essential goods have to reach. So AMPA is very seriously involved with the pilots and their health and since the AMPA motto is also safety and security of pilots, so we've been vocal about the issues which are happening in SOPs. We've also been advising to ports that the pilots, the social distancing of pilots and the boarding of pilots and things like that. I think this is the omnipresent risk, as you said very clearly, and this would definitely be there for another year or two. So this is going to change the entire management system and the processes of the port. I'm glad that the people are very cautious about these things, and port administration is really on the front foot in protecting the port environment.
Are the authorities taking sufficient preemptive steps to protect the pilots, or is it a case of simply reacting when faced with with a case of an infection and you're already into a crisis? So are they waiting for that long, those things to happen before they react, or is prevention really the modus of authorities at the moment?
Yes, very good question again on the port authorities. Yes, initially there was a lapse because nobody knew about the pandemic seriousness and situation and how it would develop. But as we go into the next second stage and third stage of the pandemic, the port administration is very serious. One example is of Kolkata port, when they have seen the two pilots reporting with symptoms of fever and things like that and tested positive. The entire port came to a standstill for one day, and they got all the pilots, COVID test done. This is a very, although this is a reactive stage, but this is a very good step to prevent further infections and further problems and crisis to the port environment. So the port environment is also very exposed to different nationalities and different crew setup and stevedores, and a lot of dock laborers work in port. So there's a lot of contact in port environment. What I would like to suggest to the port administration is that, whether symptomatic or asymptomatic, they should take the pilots as potential for these kind of infection spread. And we should test our pilots for COVID-19 at periodical intervals. If the COVID-19 is not possible at times, then we can at least do antibody test. So there could be also oximeter kept in the pilot station, where the pilots are, we don't have to wait for a temperature or a cough kind of a symptom, obvious symptom to be shown up. But we can always go beyond that line of temperature and cough and look at the pilots being tested periodically so they are not infected, and their families are also safe, the societies they live in, they are safe. So this will cumulatively have good impact. Port administration has a lot to do. They are doing it. Of course, I'm not criticizing them, but it is something that ongoing process, and somebody has to be very alert, attentive all the time, looking into the issue from the port administration side.
Pilots are such critical cogs in the working of the shipping industry. But they are very few in numbers. I mean, there are some ports which have barely 5 or 10 pilots, So even if you add up all the pilots in the world, they are still a very small number. So, do you think they are in a position to expect and or even demand attention or demand the attention they deserve?
Really not. Really not. I'm thankful to Marex for bringing this issue up because AMPA since inception has been talking about it, of giving the importance to pilots. These are the main people, who are the first one to board, the definitely the big cogs in the wheel of shipping economy. And unfortunately, yes, the community is very small and very short. So they are definitely not getting the attention what is required from the import-export point of view. But yes, one of the mottos of AMPA is to take the complaints, take the grievances to Ministry of Shipping and the administration and work towards it positively so that the disputes are resolved. The community is just coming together on pan-India level. There is no organization on pan-India level for pilots so far. Ours is the first one. And we are also in the learning mode. So I'm sure that once the community comes together in solidarity, definitely a lot of good things will happen to these people. And definitely we would like to support everything that pilot does. And we want to be vocal about all the achievements, what they do pan-India level.
What do you think will change things rapidly for our pilots? Not only for now, but for all times to come.
Thank you for this question because this is also a very close question to the AMPA's heart. Ever since our inception of AMPA, we've been thinking about various pilotage reforms. And today, as situation goes, the pilotage in India definitely needs a lot of reforms. We've been talking about it for quite some time now with various authorities. Pilot ladder safety and things like that is also one of the issues, but of course they have been taken care of as periodically and it's continuous process. But what I would like to highlight here is from the recruitment to retirement. We have an entire span for these pilots and all the stages we need the reforms in pilots. The way the pilots are recruited in India, the way they are, they retire, whether they are government employee or contractual employee, we should look at the parameter as today in Indian port, we have a lot of vacancies for pilots and pilots are not being recruited. There's nobody coming forthwith to become a pilot. Now here, some glorification is required for this profession. Whether in terms of wages, remuneration, whether in terms of facilities, in terms of their protection of their jobs and guarantee of their jobs and applauding their good work. We also need to work. We, in a sense, the entire ecosystem needs to work towards betterment because the efficient pilotage can protect your environment, protect your port, and protect also the safety of lives. That's very important. We have to look at this from this aspect. We don't have much traffic. Our ports are working at 70-80% capacity. But today, when it comes to 100%, 120% capacity, then we'll have a lot more traffic, a lot more pilots will be required, a lot more movement will happen, a lot more cargo will be handled. And our aspirations of Government of India are very high to handle the cargoes in trillions of capacity. So that's time we require to strengthen the steps of this ladder, which is going to take us to the 5 trillion economy of India. And definitely shipping economy, as we call it, blue economy, definitely the pilots are contributors to it. And they are the ones, basically, who are to be protected. In times to come, of course, there is lot to be done. But this is always a slow reform. Solidarity has to come in pilots first. The community has to come together to be one voice to the powers that be. And AMPA is all committed towards this and will definitely work towards this.
So in closing, would you like to add something?
Thank you for the interview, and I really appreciate Marex for taking this cause up because pilots testing COVID positive and after being frontline workers like doctors and police and other forces in the country, even the marine seafarers, my brothers, who are also the essential workers and frontline workers in this case. Thank you very much. Thanks, Marex, for this interview and giving me an opportunity to speak to you as an AMPA president. The community, of course, is coming together in solidarity, and will be a lot more will be achieved in coming days. Thank you, and thank you for taking note of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Captain Karanjikar. It's been a pleasure having you here with us, and I'm sure our viewers will have lots to learn from all that you have come to tell us and have told us so well. We hope this interview helps also to activate the right people in authority to take the many steps that are required to protect our pilots. Thank you once again. Thank you, viewers, and we hope to see you again soon.